Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. My name is Artem, and here is the news. 826 days less the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Sweden announced the 16th package of military aid to Ukraine worth about $1.26 billion, reports Suspilne. It provides for the strengthening of air defense, as well as armored personnel carriers, 155mm shells, tanks, robot fighter RB-99, which can be used both on aircraft and in ground air defense systems, resources for maintenance of previously transferred equipment, and for the first time, ASC-890 radar reconnaissance and control aircraft. Swedish Defense Minister Paul Jonsson said that ASC has the ability to identify various threats and risks from both land and sea. This includes approaching cruise missiles, drones, and other targets. Sweden is also working on possible future provision of their Gripen fighter jets, but the minister stressed that for a country at war, it is hard to deploy two fourth-generation fighter systems at the same time. Ukraine's Air Force explained that having received such an airborne radar from its Swedish partners, Ukraine will be able to more effectively monitor activity in Russian airspace and provide information to F-16 fighters that are to appear in Ukrainian skies to further enhance the capabilities of air warfare against the Russians, reports Ukrainska Pravda. In his evening video address, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his gratitude to Sweden and called it one of Ukraine's most principled partners. Volodymyr Zelensky also reminded that in a couple of weeks Switzerland will host the Peace Summit, preparations for which are ongoing. Quote, Russia is no longer in a position to disrupt the summit, although it is trying very hard to do so. It is putting pressure on leaders, openly threatening various states with destabilization. And this is one of the consequences of the world giving the terrorist state too much time, unquote, said the head of state. According to him, already almost 100 states and international organizations plan to take part in the summit. The president of Ukraine tasked Ukrainian officials to inform him daily about the preparations for the summit and the states that have already confirmed their participation. We would really appreciate if you could rate us, ideally with 5 stars, and leave a glowing review in the app where you are listening to this podcast, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and others. This really helps more people to find out about the highlights from Ukraine and truth about Russia's invasion. International discussion around the possible permission for Ukraine to use Western weapons to hit targets in Russia continues. Finnish Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen said that Helsinki did not impose any restrictions regarding Ukraine's strikes on Russia's territory with weapons that it handed over to Ukrainian troops, reports European Pravda. Valtonen said that a country waging a defensive war can strike at military targets on the aggressor's territory if it is necessary for self-defense. The Ministry of Defense of Poland has stated that Ukraine also can use the Polish-supplied armament to launch attacks on the territory of Russia. Cezary Tomczyk, Deputy Minister of Defense of Poland, was asked whether Polish military equipment supplied to Ukraine can be used in the territory of Russia. He replied that Ukrainians can fight however they want. Quote, Poland does not impose restrictions when it comes to the use of Polish weapons by Ukrainians, unquote, he said. Tomczyk believes that Western countries must also lift the restrictions on using their weapons on Russian territory, if there are any. Ukrainian Defense Minister Rustem Umerov mentioned this issue during his latest phone call with Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin. Umerov said that Russia continues to drop guided aerial bombs all along the front line and stressed separately that Ukraine must have the right to launch strikes on enemy territory. At the same time, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius believes that discussion about the use of weapons against military targets in Russia should not be public. Rescuers finished work on the site of the Russian strike against the DIY hypermarket epicenter in Kharkiv, reports Deutsche Welle. The number of victims of the attack rose to 19 people, including 2 children. 54 people were wounded. On May 25th, in the middle of the day, Russian forces attacked Kharkiv's store epicenter. The building was destroyed before all people could get out. It took firefighters 16 hours to put out the fire. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just two people and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we are getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.